the RGB light in that file, and it's going to work its magic and match the colors. So if you're used to adding selections in Photo Paint or Photoshop, you got to hold the Shift key and all that. That's what that plus sign is doing. So what I'm going to do is know if you're a vector person. So what happens is people say, and I get this all the time, but I teach all the time, is, well, I can't use a raster file because I can't change the colors and then take a photo or take an illustration, and it is what it is. It's sized, it's
you can solve it printer myself.
that's why this technology is full color, full prints. So take advantage of it. Right? You have, it doesn't cost you anything to print a full color size versus the size. It's finite size because there's so many pixels in the image. So if I make my brush size a little bit larger, if I hold my Option key or the Alt key, see my cursor changes to a minus sign here? If I go over this little icon there, see my cursor change. Anything in Photoshop is panel-wise, it's found. Window paths. Literally just, you click and drag and it automatically expands my selection to understand or know if you're a vector person. So what happens is people say, and I get this all the time, I say Photoshop for your staying Corel for your Corel vector stuff. I don't care about that. The image.
Hey everybody, David Lewis here with AW Specialty Papers. I'm really excited. We've got Dane Clement who is joining us. I don't know if you guys remember from the White Toner Academy. Dane was the one that was teaching us all about the artwork and the ways to use Photoshop. I was amazed at at his skills. Hey, let me scoot over and bring Dane in with us. Hey Dane, how are you, buddy?
All right, how are you, Dave?
Oh, I'm good, bud. Good. Thanks for joining us today. I really do appreciate it. You know,
Sure.
we really, you really go out of your way to help us out. You're coming up and participating in the academy. Your willingness to take some time out today to sit with us. You know, we really want to let you know that that we appreciate what you're doing here. Thanks a lot.
No worries.
So you're where are you now?
I am just north of New Orleans.
Are you?
I'm working out of my home studio. That's what you see behind me there. So stuck in the house like everyone else.
Social distancing.
Right.
Oh my gosh. So you've been through this kind of thing before. Tell us a little bit about your background. You're an artist. How'd you get into being an artist and
Sure. So
where did that start?
Well, the art part, I've been an artist my whole life, right? That's what I did in school when I was supposed to be doing schoolwork. I was doodling and drawing. I didn't do much school stuff. But in fact, a funny story, when I was in second grade, a teacher called my mom wondering if something was wrong with me because I stopped drawing in class. She's like, is everything okay? He hasn't drawn anything in like a week. So I don't know what that was about, but I guess I picked it back up. I don't know, right? But I've always done it, self-taught.
And so you've used your artistic skills in the screen printing industry predominantly, I gather.
That's kind of where I got started. Yeah. So I guess my first job was in an art department at a screen print shop. So I learned how to create separations and that sort of thing. That was back in 1986. So that was a long time ago. And it's been with me ever since. I just it was in the blood. Right. So I did that for a while. I used to do all the artwork for one of the New Orleans shops that was here years ago. One of the big ones. And I did all their artwork for a few years. And then they wanted me in-house. So they gave me space and worked inside their location and did all their artwork basically as a trade out for rent. I hired Missy, my art director at the time, which was in the early 90s. So, I've been at this in our industry for a long time, and I love it. It's one of them. It's just in me, right? So, but I've been doing it forever, it seems, right?
So I guess that probably makes you one of the most viewed artists alive.
Well, I don't know about that.
I mean, if it's on shirts all over the place.
There's stuff. Yeah, let's put it this way. That shop I did work for, they sold an awful lot of T-shirts on Bourbon Street, New Orleans for for years and years and years. So yeah, it was a lot of things that I would not claim or ever admit to. I'm just saying, if you haven't been to Bourbon Street, you might have an idea. I'm not saying I did them. I'm not saying I did. I'm pleading the fifth.
So then, from there, where were you when the hurricane came through? What happened? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So obviously the hurricane being Katrina, right? So it's very weird. So, in fact, what we have going on now, I think, is 10,000 times worse for everybody. But it's actually not. Katrina was worse for the people that lived through it, and this is what I mean. So, it was a smaller, obviously, footprint. The Gulf Coast kind of thing. That's it. New Orleans, Biloxi area, whatever. But at that point, we had no homes, no businesses. We had no power. And I'm sitting here in my home studio. I got lights. I have a freezer full of food. We threw away freezers and refrigerators, like literally had to throw them out to the dump after Katrina. So it was a whole different animal. So this one, while it's not good by any stretch, way worse than Katrina was. It's a different kind of bad, right? So, but yeah. So when Katrina hit, I was still working for that same company, screen print company, and it was a new ownership at the time. And we were still in the old building that I've worked in for years, basically getting ready to move because the new owner bought a new location, and we did a bunch of work in that place. It was really, really going to be a nice shop, and so we're in there setting it up. We clean it out. We had a 5,000 square foot warehouse piece of it, and I mean, we scraped and scraped. It was like a body shop type of thing. So it had Bondo and grease and all kind of stuff all over the floor. So we cleaned it up, acid washed it 100 times, and just we epoxied the floor. I mean, it was being built out specifically for the screen print shop. So it was really cool. We at the time we had a new MHM S-type 12 color 14 station press. Literally being put together the weekend of Katrina. And I remember I was there right at the shop. My wife's calling, my phone is blowing up. She's like, we got to get out of here. We got to get out. I'm like, I'm coming. But I was in the parking lot because the front of the building was like all glass, like retail frontage style glasses or whatever. So I'm out in the front and we had a big dumpster, and I'm cutting up the crate for the press that the press was shipped in. Inside, the new owner and the tech were putting the press together. So I'm outside cutting the crate up, putting it in a dumpster because I didn't want the crate to end up literally inside the building, right? Because it was just sitting in the parking lot type of thing. And it was a big bunch of equipment, a bunch of wood and pieces and whatnot. So I'm cutting it up, putting it there. My wife's blowing up my phone. I mean, she's freaking out. It was not good. So we finally got the press set up. I finished outside, and we had one print from a job that we've printed many times. So we kind of knew what it's supposed to look like. And we printed it. It looked awesome, by the way. It was best that print ever looked. And we left town. I mean, it was like, get out, shut the door, lock it all up, and roll. So that building never did get any damage. I made small damage. I think one little piece of the roof in the back corner kind of blew off and got a little water, but didn't hurt anything, nothing. The other building was, I think, condemned. It was where all my stuff was 6.5 feet of water in it. When we finally got back into town, I mean, there was a scum line of black mold from 6.5 feet all the way down, and everything was covered. It looked like the place where 1,000 black cats went to die. It was nuts. Big black poofs of mold or whatever. I don't know. It was the nastiest thing ever.
So you left town.
Yeah, I evacuate on pretty heavy storms, right? Anything above a 1. And that one was a 4, I think, when it hit or something. So yeah, I wasn't sticking around. It's one of those. Here's the funny part though. My whole life, we leave for a hurricane for 2-3 days, whatever, come back. You know, we used to call them little vacations, right? Little getaways, take off and you're good. You come home, you pick up a few branches in the yard, no big deal. This one was a big deal. It totally wasn't the same, right? But I had a tree go through the house, building, you know, the office was shot, lost all kind of stuff. So, it was a different animal for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, for those of us who are stuck at home, I guess the lesson is that it could be worse.
Yeah, I suppose, right? Yeah, no power. No power is pretty rough. In fact, that's where, it's the coming back after a storm. And if there's no power for a week or 2 weeks, I mean, who wants to live in that? Not me. So I'll stay out in a hotel somewhere and try to ride it out in much nicer comfort, and then come back and deal with it once the power gets back kicked back on. So
absolutely. So then after that, is this sort of when Great Dane? Tell us about Great Dane Graphics coming in.
Yeah, so I started it in 1991, and from that point all the way up until 2005 when Katrina hit, we were operating like normal, right? Just running it in the screen print business like a shop. And when Katrina hit, let's see, my family, I sent them to Virginia. They were living with my wife's sister, and I was kind of bouncing around, a lot of trade shows, a lot of things going on. My parents were in Austin, Texas. My dad's company my dad had like 450 designers and draftsmen that worked under him. And they moved everybody, families included, to Austin, Texas. It was massive operation after the storm. And so I'd go sit with them for a couple of weeks, and I'd go see the family for a couple of weeks, and then hit a show here and there. I was like just roaming like a nomad, sort of floating around. It was bizarre. But at the time, I remembered like it was yesterday. I'm sitting in a restaurant overlooking Lake Travis, I think it is, and I get a phone call from SPSI, from Tom Cadute, who's a buddy of mine. And at the time, he's screen print supply company, and he was getting into selling the digital direct to garment printers, the Cornice machines, right? So he offered me a job, and it could have been a consulting or full-time, whatever. So I took it. I kept Missy and Joe working for me as best I could. And I moved to Minnesota, man. So from, some Cajun in the swamp to move to the frozen tundra, it was a different experience, but it was great. I mean, it was an awesome experience. Right. And, I loved my job. My job was, if you bought a Cornice printer, I went into your shop and taught your art department how to get the best prints off of it. So what I loved about it was it was all artwork and it was all full color, which is, that's what I live for. Right. And I was able to teach. That got me started, I guess, showing people how to do things. And I just loved it. And then when you watch the prints come off, it just worked. It was the coolest thing ever. So then I guess we all went through another recession, 2008, 9, whenever the economy stopped the last time. It sort of seems to be a recurring thing here. And at that time, right around that time, Cornice brought in all the training in-house, right? The Cornice North America, they did all the training specifically, directly. So I got phased out of that part, and I was the web guy for SPSI for a while. And, I was thankful to have a job, but I wasn't a web guy, so that didn't work. I mean, I left. Good terms, still best friends with Tom, so no issues or anything. But I wasn't gonna do web work. I couldn't. I just wasn't into that. So at around that time is when the Saints were running for the Super Bowl, right, 2009, and I got to go to that game, which was sweet. All right. So anyway, we were thinking about coming home right around that time. And of course, having the Saints run like they did and actually go to the Super Bowl and win it. Well, that was it. Got to go home now. Okay. Can't stay in Minnesota because my friends up there weren't so happy with me when we beat them in the championship game. I'm just saying. Oh my. In fact, I still get grief from some of them guys. So right around that time, I was working with a company here in New Orleans, and also kind of got together and hooked up with Stalls. So we worked together for a while, moved back home, and been with Stalls ever since. It's just been it's been a good relationship. Really, really happy. It's a great company.
So the company has kind of transitioned a bit over a few years, because you initially started out, producing custom artwork, and then went to creating, more standard artwork, and then it's gone from there. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah. So I guess from the beginning, we were a custom art shop, right? So we would create artwork and separations and send out and ship out films and all this sort of thing. And it was okay because I had a bunch of artists in one big room, and it was easier to manage, I guess, custom artists and custom artwork that way. So I know there's a lot of freelancers out there. We use a bunch of them today that are great. It's just a little, and maybe today would be a little bit different, but at the time it was a little bit more difficult to manage because we didn't have these sort of things, these live streaming things. I mean, we had the internet and emails, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't as user friendly as it is today. So we kind of got away from the custom work, and we started taking ideas from our customers and creating our own stock art designs. And that went really well, and we stayed super busy with it, and we're still doing it. In fact, right now, this time I think we're 2 weeks behind, but we should be picking that up in another week or so, getting back on our every single week new stuff on our website type of thing. But it's just that's what we did. We went from a custom shop to a stock design shop, and now not that we're leaving that, but my part of it, my piece of it more is going to focus on training, right? So in the last year and a half, I wrote 4 books. I'll show you here. So
yeah, let's see 'em.
Yeah, so this is artwork for vinyl cutting, right? Corel Draw, like this one here. And then here's another one. This is the same lessons done in Illustrator and Photoshop. Okay. This is artwork for DTG. And you guys saw this one when I was at your class. This is where it is. There it is. Artwork for white toner transfers, right? So the training part is what I really, really liked. That's my favorite part. My favorite thing to do. Webinars are usually not, just because I can't see the crowd. I like to see people. Give me 100 people in front of me, and I love it, right? I like watching the light bulbs go on top of their head, kind of thing. But so I wrote all those books. We're working on video courses for all of those. I have 2 other books that I have that I'm working on. One's artwork for dye sublimation, and the other one's another screen print book. I wrote Operation Screen Print with Lon Winters. That's a whole screen printing kit with videos and books and things. So the training part of it has just grown with me, and it's one of my favorite parts. So with that in mind, we just recently, I want to say 2 weeks ago, maybe even last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, we launched DaneClement.com. So if you go check that site out, there's going to be more focus on the training aspects of what we do. So looking forward to it. We got a lot coming. So,
well, I got some questions for you. I mean, you show artwork for vinyl and sublimation, DTG, white toner. What are some of the basic differences? I mean, to me, I think of artwork and I say, piece of art, it doesn't really matter what,
right.
And,
so it doesn't matter to you typically because you talking about white toner transfers, right? So
no, I'm talking about a piece of art, like
okay, I got you. All right, well, fair enough. So, but when it comes to the white toner transfer, you can print vector art, you can print raster art. So it really doesn't matter. You can print anything you want. But for instance, right, there's 2 different types of artwork that we need to understand how to work with. We have to understand what vector artwork is and what raster artwork is. And, the funny thing is, when I start a bunch of my seminars, I'll ask the question, how many of you guys know what raster is, right? And 1, maybe 2 hands would go up. It's because it's not a term used in our industry by a lot of people, because most of my competitors and friends, those guys are vector guys, right? So everything they create is vector based, which is nothing wrong with vector. It's just one part, one style, one type of artwork, right? We're known more for our raster artwork, our full color graphics, like illustrations and paintings that we'll do in Photoshop or Procreate or back there on a canvas, whatever. We create our artwork however we want. And so that's the difference. You need vector and raster. So like if you have a vinyl cutter and you want to cut some vinyl, no matter what kind, Silhouette, Cricut, to Graphtex and Rollins, whatever it is, you need vector artwork for that. And you have to create the artwork with less cavities and less detail than you can, let's say, with like a Uninet printer or a screen print type of thing. You can have a lot of detail with those decorating techniques, but so that helps for that. But it's just the difference is full color raster images, PNGs, things like that. You work for digital, direct to garment, dye sublimation, white toner transfers. The vector stuff will work for screen printing. Of course, you can screen print full color, so you can use everything for everything. It's just two different styles. So it's whatever you like. Personally, my favorite is having a raster image with vector text, because the text is super clean and it's just like clean edges because of that, the way the nature of the artwork works. And then you have any kind of graphic you want punch wise. You can have it as a tone on tone, a one color, a half tone, a full color, whatever you want to do. There's no limitations when you understand both of those different types of artwork.
So let's take that for instance. You've got a raster image and you've got vector text. When you're trying to teach a group of people how they might work with that kind of artwork, and with the white toner printer category, what are some of the lessons? What are some of the things that you'll try and point out?
So, one, you have to know how to make the background go away, right? So you can't just use a transparent background PNG, because it won't work. It'll put a box of white underneath the whole thing. So you have to basically clip it into a path, and then the print drivers for the white toner machines will see that outline or that path and put the white only inside that, right? And then not on the background that's not supposed to be there. So that's a kind of a pretty quick kind of trick that you need to do, but it's part of the process. So depending on the production technique, that's why I have so many different books, right? So what I did was I split it out. So years ago, I wrote a book called T-Shirt Artwork Simplified. And that was to all encompassing, sort of covered everything, but it didn't cover everything, not by a long shot. It had some screen print stuff in it. It had direct to garment and dye sublimation things in there, but it didn't have a whole lot of, didn't have any vector for vinyl cutting and whatnot. And of course, when I started talking with Stahl's, that's Stahl's strength, right? I'm like, oh man, what an idiot. I totally forgot that whole piece of it. I should have had a chapter at least in there, and then I didn't. So I was thinking about updating those with the latest software and whatnot, but what I did was I decided to split it off by decorating technique, because the production artwork is different for all of it. There's some crossover, but certain things are specific to that decorating technique. And when I did it this way, I can start from the very beginning, basic information, all the way to the high end, most top shelf, I guess, artwork for that decorating technique. So, I split them off in there because I can get more info in it. So that's the reason. Like I said, when you're dealing with a color image, there is some crossover, but for the most part, they all require something different to decorate.
One of the things that we deal with a lot is, of course, in this group, the White Toner Success Group, we have users that are predominantly using these white toner printers, and there's those that are trying to use the printers with the standard printer driver, which is kind of what you're describing, right, in terms of the clipping path and things like that. And then there are the ones who are using one of the rips. The two most popular ones would be, the Forever Transfer rip, or the various versions of the underlying CAD-Link rip, like the Pro Rip that Uninet sells. How do you take into account, those two categories? Before you answer, one of the things that we try and promote to the group members is that you really need the rip to be successful with this. You know, what are your thoughts?
So, agree 100%, right? 100%. Because here's the deal: the print drivers can do lots of things, but there's some things that they can't do, like the rasterization. So, talking about raster artwork, like we mentioned, with, like, for instance, my graphics, full color graphics, you have to rasterize that. Otherwise, you can have a big solid print on your shirt, and it doesn't wash well, and it feels heavy, and there's a bunch of negatives. But when you rasterize it using the RIP software, or I will throw this little piece in there. I have lessons in my book that does better rasterization than either RIP, but you need a RIP in order to use it. So it's kind of a got to have the RIP anyway type of thing, because the rasterization, you can control the halftone and the colors that you want to get by using the lessons that I show. And they can automatically do it in both RIP software, but I think you have much better control when you do it yourself. But in order to have that rasterization and all those halftone dots or line dots or lines, however you're going to rasterize it, it needs the RIP to recognize where the transparency is, so it can put the white toner only where those dots or the lines are. So that's why you have to have it. If you got one of these printers, you absolutely want to get a RIP, because what's going to happen is you just unlimit yourself for the stuff you can print. You can print anything you want, anything, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Full on beautiful full color down to the simplest vector graphic you want, doesn't make a difference. But when you don't have the RIP, then you lock yourself into only what's capable in that print driver, and it's those are weak. They're just weak.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So tell us a little bit more about how your rasterization is different from the RIP.
Because, man, I'm using Photoshop for one, and it's all right here. So between this head and then Missy's head, we figured out. No, basically, I just looked back and pulled pieces from my history doing artwork and separations for screen printing. Because it's the same thing. I'm taking a full color image when I screen print something, and I'm converting it to halftones. So knowing that and been doing that for 30 years, I just used all that front end stuff, right? This is how I made those halftones. Now we just applied it for the white toner printer. So that's it. It's no rocket science. It's just I think a better way, because of all that knowledge and history that we've had over the years. I know when I make my samples, they look pretty darn sweet. You've seen them, you know.
Yeah,
they just work only from the experience that we've had. That's all.
But you know, when you one of the real important points to make is that when you're doing that kind of rasterization yourself, you really, really, really need the RIP, because
it won't work.
White, no, even if you clipped it. All right. Even if you clipped it, the white toner is still going to come out around the edge. And when you a little bit around the edge of a big shape is no big deal.
Right.
But when you've got a little bit around the edge of every
million things,
dot, it ruins the color.
Totally.
So you have to choke that white.
Absolutely. And that's obviously a benefit of the RIP, right? But you can't, if you rasterize an image and then you use a print driver, it won't work, because if, let's say, of any image, right? If I take that parrot image that you have right above your head there that I'm looking at on my screen, right? So we take that image and we rasterize it with my own lesson in Photoshop, right? Adds halftones to it. There's a lot of halftones, little bitty dots. And then when you bring that into Photoshop and you try to clip it, try to draw a vector, automatically draw a vector outline around every one of those halftones, won't do it. It will choke up your machine forever and will never. I've even let it go overnight into the next day. Let's just see if it takes 100 years. Nope, it won't work. It just dies. It's impossible. So you need the RIP for that. And then the RIP's going to let you choke it back no matter how many halftone dots you have. That's the beautiful thing. So if you can rasterize it with better control, at least in my opinion, and then choke back that base, just like we do with screen printing through the RIP, it's a win-win. You have to have a RIP, people. You just gotta. You get whatever one works for you on, but you need one for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about color. One of the questions that we get a lot is, how do I match this color? How do I match that color? What's the best way to get the most color, out of what I'm doing? Color is something that just nobody can really, wrap their minds around. And you got some people that say, well, you ought to do this in CMYK color, and some say, well, it ought to be RGB. Some say LAB.
So, no, great question, right? And I will tell you this: that's been a question since we've been printing color, right? Not screen printing so much, because we can, we can weigh our inks and match that Pantone color really close, because we can use neon colors and all sort of things in there to make that happen. When most of us, by the way, are just eyeballing that color anyways. We're not really weighing stuff. Should, but I know too many people that just eyeball it and wing it. But once you leave that realm with having spot colors and you're going into direct-to-garment dye sublimation, white toner stuff, and you're using digital files, I've been around this thing enough to know that, in my opinion, there's no perfect way. If you have to absolutely match a Pantone whatever, good luck. I got an I1 I paid $1,500 for. I'll make a deal to anyone listening or watching this interview right now, because I don't use it. It's useless. If I was printing on paper on an offset printer and I can control a whole lot more parameters than we can with the processes that we're talking about here, then I would do it, right? But what we're doing on weaved garments and different types of materials and all this, there's just no way to control it perfectly. But I'll tell you this, the trick that I learned a long time ago, if I wanted good, rich blacks and nice, vibrant, rich colors, I use in Photoshop or Illustrator or wherever I'm working in, I will use Adobe RGB 1998 as my color profile. And yes, I create all of my artwork in RGB format, not CMYK. And I know we're printing with a CMYK printer, and I know lots of people disagree with me, and that's fine. All I know is every time I've tried it, and I've been doing this for a long time, the better prints come out of an RGB file. I've had too many experiences where I tried CMYKs and I'm sending it to a machine. And once, for instance, we print our own books, have this big old giant book printer thing, right? I mean, it's 15 feet long and it's got big in feeds and whatnot. So when I first got this thing years ago, the first version, this is a newer machine, but I'm wondering, why can't I get this green remotely close to the color I'm looking for, right? It was just some off color green. It was not even in the ballpark. Beat my head against the wall forever. I'm like, what am I doing? Something's up. And then it hit me. I'm like, gee whiz, this is a CMYK file I'm sending. Let me just see what happens if I send an RGB file. Send an RGB file, and the colors were almost perfect. They were like, boom, right in a little bitty spot to good, really, really good color. And it's been that was the first experience. And there's been many, many others, but it just, those print drivers and things, they interpolate the colors from RGB files and math and do a better job of representing the final print on the back end. And if you don't believe me, try it yourself. Take an image, create it in RGB 1998, Adobe 1998 profile, and print it, and then just convert it to CMYK and print it again. You tell me which one you like.
Yeah, because for us, traditionally in printing, you're thinking about something being either RGB or CMYK, and you're talking about a CMYK printer, but we're not using a CMYK printer. We're using CMYW printer.
Exactly.
So it's a completely different color space anyway.
Right. A whole nother monkey wrench, right? I mean, so that's what I'm saying. This is not a perfect science. I don't think it ever will be.
No, it's getting better, but yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it ever will be anyway, because it's such a subjective issue as well.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this. I know we're taking up a lot of your time, and I'll try and start wrapping things up.
No
but I wanted to get your opinions about how important is artwork in terms of being successful, in this industry? And what's your advice to, to those of us who are out there trying to, come up with or create designs that are going to make us money?
So I would say, if you can, try to start with artwork that is already professionally created. Right. And so, yeah, that's a pretty straightforward plug for somebody that is in the business. But if we draw a tiger, chances are that tiger is going to be pretty sweet looking. And we may have spent 2 days painting this thing. So you take that tiger, you make adjustments. You can totally change the colors. I can adjust things. I can make it from an orange, normal looking tiger to a purple, blue, tone on tone, monochromatic. I can do anything I want to it. So you're not locked in just because an image looks like an image. It has to stay that way forever and ever. Amen. Because it doesn't. So it's just a starting point. Throw type on it, put logos on it, and finish it. Make it yours. And then you can, in less than a quarter of the time, probably, you have a finished, really nice looking design to print that works. So there's a lot of people, sometimes, not a lot of, I hear this one sometimes is, well, I don't want to use a stock art or a clip art because someone else out there has that. And that's true. If somebody buys my book and another person buys my book, then hey, there's 2 people that have my designs. So the chances of those people using the same design, there's 500 designs in the book, first off. But the chances of them using an image and it stays the same, I don't think that ever happens. So because you want to make it yours, right? Change it and up adding things to it, making it different, customizing it. If it's something for an event, put a date on it, all those sort of things. So it just, to me, it saves you money because it cuts your time down in creating the file first. It takes way less time to get a really nice image. And besides, especially in times like this, I mean, not everybody is a graphic designer. Not everybody is an illustrator, right? So if you're a business person and you own that business and you're trying to grow that business, then control as many things as you can personally. That's using an image, adding type. Then all of a sudden you just created a really nice design without having to have somebody on staff until you can afford it when that business grows and that sort of thing. So the more stuff and the more you can control in yourself as a small time situation, then I think the better off you're going to be. So
what's the difference, from say, getting professional artwork from you versus, going to one of these free sites and downloading something?
So a couple of things. One, right off the bat, is you get things from not just myself, but anybody in the business that does these designs, right? You're getting royalty-free designs. So you have the license and the right to take that design and print 1 million or more of whatever you want. I mean, mugs, t-shirts, tote bags, whatever your thing is, you have the right to print that. These free sites, a lot of them, I see it all the time. They're stealing artwork. They're just putting images up there. They have no license. Some of the stock photo places, if you go to look at their license, they're very expensive. So if you want a license to print t-shirts, some of them are, hey, you can print up to 100 whatevers, and anything more than that, it's going to cost you more. And, and it just, there's a tier defect where you're just going to pay through the nose. So, that's a problem. I mean, sometimes you'll just go steal an image off the internet and it's this big, 2 inches by 2 inches is 72 DPI. Pixels per inch, whatever, a little bitty. And you're going to make that full size on a shirt. It's going to soften it up. You're going to see the stair step jaggies, and it's just going to look terrible. So if you use something that's already designed high resolution, then you have a much better print. Gotcha.
Thanks for that. So in closing, tell us what's coming up. What have you got? What's on your schedule? Where will we see you next? What are you doing?
Okay, there's a lot. So next week, I think I have 2 things on a docket. So I'll be doing an online webinar, and I think I'm not sure how it works for the DAX show. So you go to daxshow.com and check it out. But there's going to be an online seminar that I'm going to do the same seminar that I would have done had I been in Minnesota last weekend when the show was supposed to be. They've postponed it to the end of May. So, but I guess you'll be able to actually watch it live or see it And then if you go to the show, if it does happen at the end of May in Minnesota, you'll be able to come there and see it again, type of thing, right? So I think you might have to pay for it to view it, but that's coming next week. And also next week, the Omniprint's got a creative boardroom, a creators boardroom. It's a digital event. It's a big event for the entire industry. All kinds of things are covered, man. It's just if you go to omniprintonline.com to check it out, there's a lot of speakers, a lot of things going on. I have a class, an art class that I'll be doing on that thing. So that's next week, I think on the 16th. So make sure you go check that out if possible. And I have a bunch of other things on the docket. We'll see what happens when we all get to go back to work, you know. Yeah. I hope it happens soon, because
it sounds like you're busy even not working. If you're this busy when you're not working.
I am so busy right now. We're working on the training video courses, and so there is no let up. There's no slow down. You know, I got some guys say, "Hey man, and nothing much going on. I'm gonna go walk the dog and hang out in the hammock." I'm like, I wish. You know, it's busy.
You fish, right?
I fish every day.
Every day.
And every day. And I have mostly I have luck. Didn't have any luck last night, just saying. Didn't catch nothing.
Every day, huh?
Yeah, just about.
What do you like best to fish for?
Oh, my favorite is bow fishing. So I like to bow fish at night with bows and arrows, and I like to go after redfish. That's my favorite.
Seriously? Oh my God, that's crazy! I'd love to see a picture of you out there bow fishing. That would
I can do that. I can send that. Not a problem.
Yeah, it'd be cool as hell. We'll post it on the group.
Sounds good. I'll send it to you when we get off.
There's a bunch of fishermen in the group as well.
Awesome.
All right. Well, cool. Well, any final closing words? I mean, it's just been so much fun talking with you. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Awesome. Yeah, this has been great for me. Thanks for thinking about me. I'm happy to do this, and I can't wait till we have our next class. Hopefully that'll happen one of these days pretty soon as well. So
if not, we're going to have to put it together for online.
There you go.
I'm going to let you get back to what you're doing there, buddy. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Great, awesome. Great job. All right.
Thank you very much. See you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.